This is a special podcast looking ahead to GWEC's APAC Wind Energy Summit held this year in Melbourne, Australia from the 16th to the 18th of September. Get your tickets at apacsummit2025.com.au.
Hello listeners and welcome to Offshore Wind Takeover podcast. And this is a small series of podcasts that we are releasing in combination with the APAC Wind Energy Summit, which is taking place in Melbourne, Australia from the 16th to the 18th of September. So pretty much 3 weeks from today, we are looking to head down to Melbourne. And today we are joined at the desk by Mr. Ben Hunt, who is the SVP Communication, Public Affairs and Sustainability head from GWEC BP. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Stewart. It's very good to speak to you again. I'm looking forward to getting down to Melbourne and having a chat today about what we might find when we get there.
Hey, listen, thanks very much for joining us. And I mean, you've been part of the GWEC ecosystem for several years now in former roles and now with GWEC BP. I'm sure that our listeners would, particularly to the Offshore Wind podcast, the original Offshore Wind podcast, I mean, everyone knows the Park Wind story, everyone knows the JERA story. The GWEC story is kind of like that transition again, and now the GWEC BP story. Can you give our listeners a bit of a walkthrough of, since you've joined the organisation, what you've been working with and how the organisation's looking, and perhaps some of the focus areas that GWEC BP is going to be having its sights for the next maybe short to mid-term?
Yeah, of course. So I joined JERA Co in 2023 to lead communications in what was then called JERA Green, which was a renewables division, based in London. Primarily with a focus on launching JERA Next, which was to be JERA's renewables division focused on onshore, offshore, and battery storage. We launched the company in April 2024, and then as you'll have seen towards the end of last year, the company announced that it was going to undertake a joint venture with BP, combining the two offshore wind businesses of the two companies, which is encompasses all of those parts that you've just talked about. It's some operating wind farms and projects from Parkwind and JERA, and BP's development portfolio. So that was announced in December. We finally managed to launch the company on August the 4th. So we've had a lot of fun over the last few months, putting together brand architecture, design, all of those sorts of things. And it's been an interesting process getting to know new colleagues from BP, and we're about 3 weeks in now, and probably still in the getting to know you part of the enterprise. A lot of kind of reviews going on because of competition rules and all the rest of it.
Sure.
We weren't really able to collaborate fully until the transaction was completed. We've done 3 weeks now. It's been really fascinating. You don't get the chance to launch companies very often in a career, and I've managed to do two in just over 12 months. So it's something different. Really now we're looking at what we've got. We're looking at the development portfolio. Obviously, everybody knows that life in offshore wind isn't very easy just at the moment. So, figuring out how to take our portfolio forward and how and where to develop wind farms that will deliver the clean green energy that the world needs. And we've got Australia is a good place for us to be. We've got a couple of feasibility licenses in Victoria, so that's one of our focuses in the APAC region, along with Japan. And then we have a pipeline that covers projects in the UK, Europe, and the US.
Fantastic. And so, just to be clear, those onshore and battery storage projects that were part of the earlier portfolio, they have been spun out of the GWEC BP.
Yeah, they stayed with JERA. So the JERA Next organization still exists, and that's some solar assets, some onshore wind, and other bits and pieces. Some platform investments in Asia.
Yeah. So so let's take a bit of a deep dive into some of the things you're actually going to be doing we call them Rex Talks, but I mean they're the GWEC equivalent of a TED Talk. You'll be delivering one of the Rex Talks, I believe, on behalf of JERA Next BP, and you've got a pretty interesting topic about collaborating and how to collaborate across, or what's needed, I guess, in relation to collaboration around the APAC region. And I think that this is kind of like a central theme of our conference. I mean, one of the reasons why we actually are doing this conference is because a lot of our members have been asking for years around around greater regional collaboration and an ability for individual markets within a region to actually work collaboratively. But up until now, there's been really no forum to deliver that. So we're trying to provide a forum, and your Rex Talk or your TED Talk is going to feed directly into that topic. So could you maybe give the listeners a bit of an insight into how you are seeing regional collaboration and what's needed to help unlock that APAC wind potential?
Yeah, so I think it's, we when we launched, when we announced the company in December last year, we said that we believe that no single company or organization has the ability to unlock the potential of offshore wind, and that it's going to require collaboration across the entire value chain, from the governments and authorities that are setting the legal frameworks and commercial frameworks for offshore wind, through the supply chain, and obviously developers and the manufacturers. It's obviously an offshore wind, getting an offshore wind farm from design to delivering power is incredibly complex, and you can see at the moment, if you just look at the kind of landscape that we have in Europe, which is where the vast majority of offshore wind sits at the moment. We've been doing it now for, I think the oldest offshore wind farm's 30 years, but realistically on this scale for 10 to 15 years. And it's still extremely difficult, and it still requires companies to work extremely hard together to make sure that we create the right circumstances to get things moving. So if you look at Asia Pacific, which doesn't have at present doesn't have the same supply chain developed as Europe has, the sophistication of that supply chain. It doesn't have, in a market like Australia, there's no offshore wind in the water at the moment. Everything is, development projects. You're starting to some extent from scratch, and we can bring some of the expertise that we have developed and the experience that we've developed in wind farms in Europe to bear there. But equally, we want to make sure that local communities and markets in which we're building the farms benefit as well, and that we get it right for those markets too. And the one that you learn quite quickly in this business, that every wind farm is unique. Every wind farm has a sort of unique set of challenges, and so you better be on top of what are the local requirements. What are we Australia in particular, we're developing good partnerships with First Nations representatives to make sure that they are kind of fully represented and also benefiting from the projects that we're running. And you can really only do that if you're listening, talking, discussing, and with everybody from the kind of Minister of State down to local communities that may have anxieties or concerns about a farm. And that's what that's the collaboration means to us. It's pretty holistic throughout the entire project, and of course there's a sort of financial element as well. These are extremely big investments, and the one of the reasons why we have JERA Next BP is to create a stronger, more resilient vehicle for building offshore wind farms, and there's a shared expertise, shared risk, shared investment. So that's pretty much how we see it. The more you're talking, the better the discussions you have, the more you understand what everybody's trying to achieve, the better chance you have of getting a good project into the water and generating clean energy.
Thanks for that. Is it hard to remain optimistic in this current state of the world when you see, like you see the horrific situation in the US where a change of a change of direction from a government can stop a project that's 80% complete. And you've got, that just a week ago, even in Australia, we've got organisations handing back a licence, etc. I mean, and you guys have always been, well, the Parkwind and the Jera team that followed it. I mean, I always consider those guys as being really astute investors, like developers, and you guys have been in markets. You get into markets very early. You get to know the conditions, and you're really astute in terms of the developer profile that you have. I mean, I understand that you got a active interest in Gippsland, and I mean, in the Western Victoria one, that's a really interesting one because that probably doesn't have the same level of not industry support. Like you're alone down there. Like it's up to you to make this industry that region fly. Is there sort of some sort of difference in how you? Well, I guess the optimism that you have to be able to actually make sure that these projects get over the line.
I mean, we've taken a lot of knocks over the last few years, right? So, and the industry bears those scars. So you have to go in with your eyes open and sort of be realistic about what's possible. Yep. And it is difficult when, with changes in sort of political direction, you can see, changes in emphasis towards renewable energy, changes in policies or whatever. And it's fair to say we did hold our breaths a little bit before the federal elections in Australia with those sort of particular projects in mind, because it really is critical. The outcome of those elections is critical to the sort of path forward for those projects. And you're right to say that I wouldn't say we were alone, because cooperation with the Australian government, the Victoria government has been very good, and there's been sort of a lot of discussions, a lot of input from both sides and from others in the supply chain and communities, and we have a really great team down in Melbourne who are sort of trying to bring offshore wind to life in Australia. So I'm kind of confident about the future of offshore wind. I always have been. I came into this industry with Siemens Gamesa about 6 years ago because I believe, very strongly that this is a critical part of the energy transition with, colossal potential. But I think perhaps we've all kind of reined in our ambitions a little bit. We know that perhaps it won't be, offshore wind might not be the solution for every market, but there will be a lot of markets where it really does have a huge amount to offer, where the conditions are right. Where there's a growing sort of demand for electricity that offshore wind can fill, and Victoria clearly is one of those places. I think you're a Victorian, Stewart, so you know that there's quite a lot of ocean, and quite a lot of wind, and so that's a great place to start. And then if you have a government which is willing to be a good partner, and a lot of people working with kind of goodwill and determination to put things together, then I'm still an optimist for the industry.
Yeah, and you're right. So I am a Melbourne boy, and I actually spent 3 years of my life studying down in Warrnambool, which is where the Western, one of the project's license areas is. And we had someone on the program. We did one of these series with a professor from Deakin University from the Akawi network. For the Australian Centre for Offshore Wind Energy, and he's sort of like based down in Warrnambool, and it was really fascinating to hear his opinion about what the local community, how the local community is actually engaging and how supportive they are. I mean, of course, any infrastructure project has its opposition, but he also mentioned that there is a lot of support for the project down there as well. There are lots of people that really believe that this is an answer to an energy challenge and a climate challenge, and can deliver economic prosperity to a region that you perhaps wouldn't say that the coastal communities have been decimated by sort of industry leaving down in Warrnambool and down in the Portland area. But I mean, it's definitely something that can reinvigorate and have a really profound economic benefit. And we also see how many licenses there are in Gippsland, for example, and the clamouring for licenses in Gippsland. So it's clear that offshore wind in Victoria is going to work, and I think it's going to work quite well. I think we noticed that Lily D'Ambrosio, the Energy Minister for the state of Victoria, she's a big supporter of the conference, and she's going to be there on the opening day to come with some pretty special announcements, I'm led to believe, around that offshore wind input, around what's happening around offshore wind in Victoria. So very much looking forward to that. But so great to hear that you guys are developing at least a couple of areas, a couple of zones in Victoria. Pretty important, pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's a new thing, right? And it takes a bit for people to get used to it. I remember the first time I went offshore to visit a wind farm was Rampion on the south coast of the UK, and that was on a GWEC trip actually. And the guy from RWE, the developer from RWE, was saying, yeah, well, when we started here, the people in Brighton, they had no interest in having a wind farm on the horizon and being able to see turbines. But actually, once it's there, once they're in the water, you realise that it becomes a feature rather than a problem. And all right, Brighton's it's a pretty liberal area, and I'm sure there are a lot of supporters of green energy there. But they came. I seem to recall him saying they came to regard this as our offshore wind farm, bringing clean energy into Brighton, and the other. From my time at SGRE as well, I remember very well the economic regeneration that came to Hull and the northeast of England from the blade factory that was open there. Some of these coastal communities have suffered in sort of the post-industrial era, and for Gippsland and for other emerging markets, they will bring good jobs and local economic activity, and that's one of the benefits. And the other benefit, of course, is we do need to decarbonize the energy supply, and offshore wind is a pretty efficient way of doing that. So yeah, hopefully we can bring the communities along as well, and as you say, people will understand the benefits and get on board.
So I just wanted to back over that piece around collaboration. So we see that in different markets in the APAC area, there's different levels of ambition and different levels of maturity. We see China, for example, as huge offshore wind install base, the biggest single market in the world for offshore wind. It's a bit unique there, so we maybe look at other markets in the APAC apart from China, because that has unique challenges all to its own. But I mean, things like Taiwan, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, the Philippines, what's going on, like the stuff that's going on in those markets and the level of maturity. Is it difficult as a developer to work with markets that are on varying sort of like time schedules for coming to market? And do you see that, I know that the Philippines has some quite ambitious targets, and as does the Victorian government. And in terms of where they want to see turbines in the water, do you how does it, as a developer, how do you actually, align all of these individual market requirements to try to work out what is your approach to the region?
Well, you can't do everything, right? So you have to take sort of strategic decisions about which markets you want to be in, and where you're going to invest, because obviously there's sort of limited resource for everybody. As you say, different markets are on sort of different speeds. So Parkwind invested very early in Australia, saw the potential in Australia, and as I said, we have a team down there doing everything they can to get offshore wind turbines into the water in Victoria. And then obviously we have one of our shareholders is Japanese, and so we have one operating wind farm in Japan and a couple of projects in development there. For the time being, that will be the focus of our development. Plus, we have a couple of operational wind farms in Taiwan as well. So you look at what's possible, what makes sense for the business, where there's a good financial case. I think when you're looking at particularly at emerging markets away from the sort of heavily developed supply chains, you need to look at what's available when. I think there's quite a lot of evidence of that there's a turbine crunch around the turn of the decade. There's a vessel crunch as well. So you need to be balancing all of those requirements in your portfolio to make sure you can get the right right bits into the right ports and into the sea at the right time, and it's going to be a big challenge, I think, for emerging markets in particular. And then we see, how the supply chain will develop, and I suspect that in Asia Pacific, it seems likely that there'll be more. There's likely to be more reliance on the supply chain from China, perhaps, than there is in Europe and in other markets.
Sure. I mean, I guess the proximity of Korea to Japan, so there's some, and maybe even Vietnam in that. There's maybe some synergies for building out a supply chain, but in Australia and New Zealand, geographically they're so far away from the rest of the APAC market. I mean, is it worthwhile trying to build synergies from a regional perspective, or does Australia and New Zealand need to work together to make sure that there's that, and also even the west coast to the east coast of Australia is going to be challenging? I mean, it could be really interesting to get some insights into that. How do you actually bridge that distance, and whether there will be synergies between those markets?
I think if offshore wind really does develop in the way that we hope in Asia Pacific, then a regional supply chain will develop for sure. Exactly what that means for Australia and New Zealand is difficult to say at the moment. It's it's incredibly cost intensive to build factories and platforms for these giant machines. You need the port infrastructure and transport infrastructure. All of those things need to be right, and it requires a huge investment. So decisions ultimately will be made about where the best hub is for those activities. I think from what I've seen so far, there's a pretty sort of realistic approach to these things in much of these markets. Not everybody can have a blade factory or a nacelle factory. A lot of it is going to have to be shipped in from elsewhere. But as you say, that is challenging, and it's all part of the calculation about which market do you want to be in, and which has the potential to deliver value for all stakeholders, including shareholders and investors.
So if we turn our attention back to your presence at the APAC Summit this year, will this actually be the first show where the JERA Next BP brand is the first show under the new brand, or have you managed to have a couple of shows in between the launch?
There's a conference in Gippsland next week, or the week after next.
That's
I think,
right.
which is I think the brand will be on display there. Beyond that, it'll pretty much be the first. I think it'll be the biggest show that we've been to for sure. Where we've had sort of quite a lot of presence. So we're pretty excited about that. It's a long way to go. So expectations are very high for GWEC to deliver a great event, Stuart. So we're all watching.
Yeah, we're trying our best. We're trying to get a lot of people. We're actually trying to really engage with the community this year. It was really important from Vic government, who partnered with GWEC on this event right from the start. So big support of DECA, the Department of Energy and Climate Change from Victoria, and also the OWEV team, the Ocean Offshore Wind Energy Victoria team. So Anne May and Minister D'Ambrosio that have been really supportive of this event. And from the outset, what they wanted GWEC to do was to bring community into the exhibition area. So this year we're actually focusing. We'll still have the usual sort of like trade show feel, but I mean, we are trying to bring in community groups and open it up for community and discussion, and make it much more about community engagement, and making sure that people get an opportunity to come and, experience what the wind industry actually is delivering, both onshore and offshore, but in particularly those communities around the Warrnambool, the Western Districts, and also the Gippsland community. So that getting those people down to the show and to come and chat with the developers and chat with the people that are actually on the ground making this happen, and the ones that have been on the ground for several years, plotting and trying to actually get this into a stage where we're actually ready to deliver. So we feel like that's happening. So we're very, very eagerly awaiting the 16th of September, when we can actually open the doors and have Minister D'Ambrosio give the opening address. It's going to be a pretty special day. And as I said, you're going to be delivering a Rex talk on day one, I believe. So we're also looking forward to that, Ben.
Yeah, no, Fortunately, it's a very long flight to Melbourne from London, so there'll be plenty of time to perfect the. Did you say Rex is REX? Is that?
Yeah, yeah. So renewable expert is actually what it stands for. So
Okay. Well, that might be sort of a little bit of overbilling there, but no, I'm looking forward to doing it, and yeah, finding a good Aussie theme to help it sort of get a bit of traction with the local audiences. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone down there.
yeah. Thanks, Brian. And also, you mentioned the GNEC conference or the Gippsland conference that's happening the week before. So GWEC is partnering with the Gippsland New Energy Conference this year as well. So if listeners to the podcast want to go down to Gippsland the week before, they can jump on the website, and we're doing a 2-for-1 deal. So Darren McCubbin and the team of the Gippsland Energy Conference we've agreed to do sort of like a 2-for-1 deal. So if you want to go to both the GNEC and GWEC conference, please jump on the website and you can actually book your tickets there for both conferences. So pretty seamless, trying to make it happen. And as I said, it's very important for GWEC to make sure that we are engaging with the local communities as well. We see that as a huge part of actually the reason why we do these conferences around the world and why we do move them from country to country, is to make sure that we actually have the opportunity to engage with local communities in various markets. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that as well.
Well, and our team will be down
Okay,
there.
so
Sorry, we'll have the Blue Mackerel team will be down there as well. So go and say hello to them if you are going.
Perfect. Look, thanks very much for jumping on the line quickly, Ben. And I'm sure that our listeners are going to be very interested to hear what you have to say. And I hope that inspiration comes to you in those 30 plus hours that it takes to get from London to central Melbourne. So we're very much looking forward to seeing you down there, and also the Gera Next BP team. We're very excited to have you all there, and good luck with the conference, and good luck also for the Blue Mackerel team with the licenses that are coming up as well, or the auctions that are going to be announced shortly as well.
Thanks, Stewart. Good to speak.
So listeners, if you want to hear and see Ben in the flesh, make sure that you get along to the APAC Wind Energy Summit, the 16th to the 18th of September at Jeff Shed, or better known as the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre in central Melbourne. Make sure you're there, and it starts at 9 a.m. on the 16th and goes through till I think around about 1 o'clock on Thursday the 18th. So get along. If you're wanting tickets for the GNEC conference, also make sure that you check out the website, because those tickets are available online. We are also teaming up with Andy Evans's conference as well, so there's that as well. So we're doing 2-for-1 deals as well. So if you are interested in attending multiple conferences this year in Australia, make sure that you make APAC Wind Energy Summit one of those, and get online now, and we can sort you out for tickets. So we look forward to seeing you there. And once again, Ben, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, there's more of that and many more discussions to be had at the APAC Wind Energy Summit on the 16th to the 18th of September at the Melbourne Exhibition and Convention Centre. GWEC will be there with a host of thought leaders from around the industry, having discussions around onshore wind, offshore wind, O&M, and much, much more. Make sure you pick up your tickets today, and we look forward to seeing you there.